All right, so welcome everyone. I'm Karen Ober. I'm the Sustainability Officer with the Office of Sustainability at McGill, and we're so pleased you can join us today. This event was organized as part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Action and Awareness Week, which is an initiative of the University Global Coalition, the UGC, in partnership with the State University of New York, that's SUNY. So the purpose of the week is to promote awareness of the SDGs among students in higher education, students and others, not just students, but everyone in higher education, and to inspire them to take action to further the goals on their campuses and in their local community. Developed by the United Nations and adopted in 2015, if you're not aware, the Sustainable Development Goals are made up of 17 interconnected goals that provide a blueprint to achieve a more equitable and sustainable future. They represent a call to action for all nations in order to address the global challenges facing humankind. And since their adoption, institutions, cities, nations, and others have embedded the SDGs into their missions, aligning their work with the goals so as to forge a path forward towards a world in which everyone may thrive. So the presentation today is about sustainable food systems. It will provide a holistic understanding of one of the most pressing global issues in our lifetime, that is ensuring sustainable food systems for all. And as our presenter, Professor Cortbaoui, will propose, the Sustainable Development Goals are integral to establishing sustainable food systems. So just to briefly introduce Professor Cortbaoui, he is the Managing Director of the Margaret A. Gilliam Institute for Global Food Security and an academic associate in the School of Human Nutrition at McGill. He received his PhD in bioresource engineering from McGill, and he is an agricultural engineer, food security consultant, and project manager with over 12 years of experience in providing solutions to alleviate food insecurity in different regions of the world, including North America, Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. So I'll welcome Professor Cortbaoui to the stage here. And later on, we'll hear a few words from Drashti Zaveri, who is a research and administrative coordinator for the Institute of Global Food Security at McGill. But I'll pass it over to Professor Cortbaoui now.
Well, thank you so much, Karen, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for this introduction, and good morning, everyone. Happy to see you all today. And actually, I want to say a few words before we start. This event is in collaboration, as Karen said, or the initiative of the University Global Coalition, which is a group of more than 100 universities, actually, including McGill, and higher education associations from around the world. They met in 2019, actually, very recent, right? So with the United Nations to form a global platform of universities to work toward together and in partnership with the United Nations in support of the SDGs through education, research, and service missions. This is exactly, it is well aligned with our mandate at the IGFS, the Institute for Global Food Security at McGill. So without further delays, I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you guys so we can start the presentation of today. There you go. Sorry. All right, you guys see it? You just let me know. Okay, perfect. I hope I'm gonna maybe reshare. Just one sec. Sorry, guys. Just because I didn't click, I guess, the sound. Let me double check because there is. Yeah, it's there. Okay, perfect. Sorry, guys, for this little delay. All right, so today's lecture or presentation is about connecting the dots towards sustainable food systems. And sustainable food systems is, we're going to see the definition in the further slides. But today's is one of the kind of hot topics, actually, especially after post-COVID. Post-COVID, things like things are changing in lives, and there is a paradigm shift now because we cannot continue just producing food as we usually do. So just copying and pasting the past into the present and the future will definitely be a recipe of failure. So we need the kind of a paradigm shift, how we can produce sustainably our food for many generations to come without further compromising our environment. So before I start, I want to acknowledge that I want to say that McGill University is on land which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst indigenous peoples. including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse indigenous peoples whose presence mark this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. I'm going to start my presentation today with a small, short video. What happened back in September 2021 in the United Nations, where they had a global food system summit. Let's watch it together.
Of our cultures.
Sorry.
Food is more than just what we eat. The ways in which we produce, process, and consume food touches every aspect of life on this planet. It is the foundation of our cultures, our economies, and our relationship with the natural world, and has the power to bring us together as families, communities, and nations.
Families and children are on the brink of famine.
But today's food systems are fragile and unequal. When they fail, there are ripple effects around the world, and the pandemic has impacted the most vulnerable among us. But we know what we need to do to get back on track. We have an opportunity to build back stronger than ever. Transforming our food systems is possible and necessary, and we can set a course to make real change for the benefit of all people. By bringing together key players from around the world and giving voice to citizens in every country. Because a strong food system means
no matter your race, no matter your class, no matter where you live,
women and men have equal opportunities to produce and access nutritious food,
which promotes human health at every step
without degrading land and water resources.
Significa una agricultura familiar,
provide us, the community, with stability
all year round, every month, every day of the week,
even during a pandemic.
We are all connected, and we all have a responsibility to act. We must be bold. We must think and act differently. Transforming our food systems is the most powerful action we can take to solve our biggest problems. Because together,
we can build a just and resilient world.
A just and resilient world
where no one is left behind.
where no one is left behind.
Where no one is left behind.
Where no one is left behind. Join us today.
Okay, great. So I'm going to pass to the next slide. So the objectives of this today's lecture, actually, or presentation, is to talk. It's threefold, actually. So the first one is to talk a little bit about what IGFS, the Margaret Gilliam Institute for Global Food Security at McGill, is, and then and then talking a little bit about the Sustainable Food System Program and how we build it, what is the composed of, and what are the major or the main topics. And then at the end, we're going to conclude with some how this program helped addressing the SDGs. So IGFS, again, it stands for Institute for Global Food Security at McGill University. Our vision is to become a globally recognized institute for research management, innovation development, consultancy, and knowledge transfer in matters related to food security. Our mission is to act as a hub of knowledge and training in food security. In alignment with this, the Institute will focus on operation research. So research that have some end users, right? So operation research, like applied research. Definitely applied education and practical education and effective outreach that will address both the needs of the industry and the society as well. So in order for us to achieve a sustainable food system, or working towards achieving a sustainable food system, we kind of formulated an online program at the Institute in collaboration with the McGill School of Continuing Studies to equip the students with knowledge on sustainable food systems to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So the program is composed of two different courses. It provides an in-depth examination of the current challenges facing food security and ensuring sustainable food systems for all by improving the agricultural resource use efficiency along all the agri-food value chains, and working towards the sustainable development goals by 2030. So the first course will talk or will highlight what are the most current challenges in global food security. And then the second course would talk about fundamentals of sustainable food systems. So the entire program aligns with all the 17 SDGs. And more specifically, the course number 1 covers 12 out of those 17 SDGs. So let me start a little bit and give you some highlights about the first course, which is current challenges in global food security and SDGs. So by definition, what is food security? Food security, it's a state. It's not something that you can go and ask, for example, I want 2 kilograms of food security. Food security exists, it's an experience. Exists when all people at all times have physical, economic, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs, right, and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So you can tell immediately that food security, it's kind of a complex way or a complex issue to achieve worldwide, because it has to be for all people at all time. There is no time or lifespan of those food security. You cannot say, well, I am food secure today for the next 6 months, and next year I won't be food insecure. Sorry, did I click something? Sorry,
Patrick.
I don't know what.
We lost your screen. We could only see. There we go.
You can see it now. Sorry.
We can see it now. That's good.
I didn't patch anything. I was just speaking.
It's okay.
Sorry for that. That's the technical issues.
No worries.
So going back to the definition, so you can tell immediately how complex food security is, right? And so we're definitely gonna provide people with more safe, sufficient, and nutritious food. Not necessarily always enough quantity, which is sufficient, but of a healthy diet, a nutritious diet, right? And that's what our challenge today, because the recent statistics shows from 2021, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, that people are lacking access. The majority of insecure people, right? So they're lacking, or they cannot afford buying healthy food. Why is that? Because healthy food is way more expensive than unhealthy diets, actually, and of food preferences for an active and healthy life. I cannot go and impose on other countries or other communities, well, you have to eat such and such food every single day. Every person, it's by definition or by the Declaration of Human Rights, food is a human right. So meaning that every person has its own right to choose whatever he or she has to eat or wants to eat, right? So we cannot just tell them, well, what you have to eat. They have the choice, and they have the freedom to prefer that food compared to others. So what is food insecurity? It has three different layers, mild and moderate and severe. So when we talk about mild food insecurity, it starts with people when people or the household members start worrying about the ability to obtain food. I saw it several times during the pandemic in Montreal, even in Canada, where people, they start worrying about today's and tomorrow's, their ability to buy food. It could be for many reasons, like accessibility in terms of financial accessibility, or in terms of infrastructure, like nearest markets, the availability of the food on the shelves, and so on. So they are worrying now. Here, they're still worrying about their ability to buy food. Now, moderate food insecurity starts with compromising some of the quality of the food, of the variety of food during the day, whereas an advanced level, but still at the moderate food insecurity, where people start reducing the quantity even here. So they're skipping meals per day. So instead of eating like three times a day, they can eat maybe 2 times a day, or at least like the parents, they won't eat, or they eat 1 time a day, and the children, they eat 3 times a day. Where a severe food insecurity, where all household members, including parents, adults, and kids, they all experiencing hunger now. So they're skipping meals, they're skipping quality and quantity of food. All right. Food insecurity leading to hunger and malnutrition. So hunger is a consequence, and malnutrition is a consequence of food insecurity in all its forms. And usually the forms of malnutrition, and I mean malnutrition by undernutrition, so undernourished people, and overnutrition. So again, the complexity of food security, not always, you cannot reducing it to a poverty issue when people, they don't have enough food. Where food insecure people can be also obese and overweight. This is overnutrition. So you know that every person to survive, you need 2,500 kilocalories per day to live in a healthy life, right? You can definitely have them from an unhealthy meal. That doesn't mean you're food insecure, you're food secure. You're still considered food insecure, because that will definitely causing NCDs and all those chronic diseases as a consequence from unhealthy and obesity diet. So both hunger and malnutrition, they are responsible for more health issues than any other cause. It remains a barrier to a sustainable development. So for all the 17 SDGs, each SDG, it has several targets to achieve, and each target has its own measuring indicators, what we call it, SDGs indicators. So for the, let's say, the zero hunger, which is SDG number 2, target 2.1 is that by 2030, the world is aiming to end hunger and ensure access by all people, in particular the poor and people in vulnerable situations, including infants, to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food all year round. So these indicators measures people's access to food and promotes better targeted policy interventions with a greater impact on hunger eradication and achieving food security. So those indicators, we put people, like the word they put them in order to how to quantify or how to better measure, the success of those targets, because simply by saying you cannot manage what you don't measure. So therefore you need to measure, and you need to find appropriate indicators or measurement tools in order to say, well, you help achieve SDG number or target 2.1 out of the SDG number 2, and so on and so on. So this graphic shows you exactly how food security help or can influence 12 out of 17 SDGs. So I'm not going to go through all of them in details, but for example, it helps achieve the SDG number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and so on. And even SDG number 17, which is a good partnership. How is that? Food security can be achieved by sustainable partnership that supports smallholder farmers and those who depends on them. So you can tell immediately that how food security, like one sector, which is food security, can help achieve 12 different sectors or 12 different SDGs out of 17. So food security is essential for the success of various SDGs related to health, agriculture, hunger, climate, and equality. So food security is a global issue, but at the same time could be a global solution to so many SDGs at the same time. And you can see that they are, everything is interconnected, is interrelated. So you cannot separate health, global health from agriculture, hunger from climate change, because one, it could be the cause and one could be the consequences of the other. Anyway, we're gonna see in the further slides there, details. So other main challenges of global food security today is that, as you might know, that 70% of our food destined for human consumption globally is produced by smallholder farmers worldwide, right? And one of the main, those smallholder farmers, they have several agricultural issues globally. Among those are inadequate access of resources. They lack resources, could be physical resources, could be training, could be resources, human resources, could be financial resources, could be land also, and those are like natural resources. Lack of post-harvest system facilities in order, and this will definitely increase the food wastage. Social constraints, women empowerment, gender inequality, all those kind of stuff, right? Like even, race, gender, and color, and so on. Inadequate access to production, right? Like in terms of tools and raw materials and seeds. Limited role in decision making. I have a student, she's working, she's a PhD student, she was working on who's deciding within the household members, is it like the male or the female? And you can see the consequences of the decision-making role of in terms of buying food and what to cook inside this household for the entire family. And you can tell immediately that there's a huge difference and between who's deciding, if the man is deciding to what to buy and what to cook versus a woman, what she's deciding or what to buy and what to cook. So property and land right issues like land tenures, mainly in developing countries as well. So labor migration, one of the most daunting or main challenges today is the youth migration. So youth like from 15 to 35 years of age, they kind of lost hope in agriculture. They don't want to work in agriculture. So they're fleeing to other countries or other neighboring cities, just in the hope of finding better life and better income. But that's a problem also because who's gonna take care of the agriculture back in their native, villages. And so again, we have like previous students working on this, on the consequences of labor migration and how this is affecting local nations and the new kind of village, sites that those migrants are fleeing to. Environmental constraints, what are those? Due to climate change, for example, like flooding, droughting, all those kind of stuff. Those are all environmental constraints. So you can tell immediately that a smallholder farmer, he has many agriculture crises and issues that will affecting his food insecurity, and it will affecting him from producing in a sustainable way, actually, for many generations to come. This is the same thing. I'm not going to repeat the same thing. So just to say that between today's population is like 7.8 billion people. And with the projection is to be 9.8 by 2050. So there is an extra 2 billion mouth to feed by 2050, which is 25 years from now, 27 years from now, 28 years. So how are we going to feed those 2 extra billion mouth, right, without further compromising the environment in terms of water, land, and soil and energy? Those are the major three agricultural natural resources to produce any kind of food, right? Addressing global issues will help smallholders to achieve SDGs. So the aim is to strengthen national capacities to design and implement complementary trade and agriculture policies considering the needs of small-scale farmers. This is exactly switching or having this paradigm shift or moving from a colonized food system to a decolonized food system, right? So strengthening national capacity, building on existing capacities of local farmers and local producers and local, like communities there, helping them and putting in place some adequate policies that will help that will help to address the smallholder farmers' needs. A fundamental part of any strategy towards more productive and sustainable agricultural and rural development is access for agriculture and food producers, smallholder to markets with higher efficiency, transparency, and competitiveness. I've been traveling to developing countries for the last 12 to 15 years, and always I ask the question, what do you guys want us to help you and how we can collaborate, right? So the first thing they always tell me, well, Patrick, if you want to help us, don't tell us how to grow food. We know how to grow food. We know even better, more than you guys, how to grow food. Our ancestors used to have those, used to treat, diseases and how to maximize the yield and to know how to do soil conservation practices and so on, like terracing and so on. But if you want to help us, stop corruption, help us building infrastructures, link us to the nearest markets, because now this is part of the decolonization thing, because of the colonized global food system. So now the markets are saturated from imported crops from outside. And this is very unfortunate, honestly, for local production, right? So they need some access to markets and how to bargain with even markets against the quality standards imposed by mega giant farming and companies from outside. And this is all towards, if we're gonna really work towards achieving a sustainable food system, those components or approaches cannot be discarded or cannot be neglected. Agriculture and climate change, which is it's a three-way link. So you can tell that climate change impacts agriculture and agri-food system, right? So agriculture is both impacted by climate change, and it's at the same time a source of greenhouse gas emission. So it's a dilemma here. And agriculture and agri-food system are also part of the solution. So by using fewer fossil fuels throughout the agri-food value chain can strategically help against climate change. So what I'm trying to say here is that stop abusing our natural resources with the current mode of production, like in terms of soil, energy, and water. If we can use them in a more sustainable way, because for food production, we definitely can achieve all the other we can address climate change and all those kind of disasters, as I said, like the drought and the flooding and all those stuff. All right. So again, addressing and adapt to climate change. So we need to think about how we can be more climate resilient. So access to technologies, markets, and information to adapt production system linked to climate. Awareness raising, innovation, capacity development, incentives based on systematic assessment of expected impacts of climate change and agriculture. A sustainable increase in agriculture production to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Sustainable management of forest and its conservation. You know that forest agroecology is it's a core subject to sustainable food system, right? Because what happened, that forest, it helped regulate the climate, it helped provide the oxygen in the environment. It helps to pollinate, right? Pollinations and the longevity, the insurance of our survival on this planet Earth. Because at the end, we are all living on this finite Earth where we have finite resources in terms, as I said, of water, soil, and energy. So forests can be a great partner for us that we should take care of also for our longevity on this planet Earth. And all these climate resilient activities will definitely contribute to several SDGs at the same time. Among them are the 1, 2, 11, 13, and 14 SDGs. And you can tell that I'm always linking back and forth with the SDGs. So food loss, that's another main issue in or challenge in today's global food security, right? Food loss and waste. The recent statistics show that around 2 billion tons of food, and not feed. I'm talking about human consumption here, not animal consumption. So food that is still edible for a human, right? And that is wasted annually. Imagine, and just to tell you, by wasting an apple, you're not wasting only the 17 grams of apple. You're wasting all the natural resources behind that apple to produce that apple. For example, you're wasting 70 liters of water to produce that specific apple. You need 15,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of red meat. So imagine if you're losing or wasting, right, this kilogram of beef, and we're wasting more than that, way more than that. So we always forget about those natural resources that we're wasting at the same time. So food loss and waste are two different terms, focusing on the broad idea of decreased consumption of edible food by humans due to decrease quantity and quality of food production. Just to differentiate between food loss and waste, food loss always happening at the production at some early stages in the or segments in the supply chain, whereas usually in the production, storage, packaging, and infrastructure kind of stages. And this is mainly happening in developing countries. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in developed countries as well, but this is mainly happening in developing countries. Whereas food waste usually happening towards the end of the supply chain segments, towards retailing and consumption level, especially, and this is mainly in the developed countries, unfortunately. All right. Reducing food waste, we have a big opportunity towards achieving or influencing several SDGs at the same time. Among them are the no poverty, zero hunger, like the number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Reduce inequalities in the society, sustainable cities and communities, right? So like urban agriculture and so on. Responsible consumption and production. We're just saying now in terms of consumption, how food is being wasted because we're eating or we're consuming more than we need. Sometimes we have the purchasing power in developed countries that we are able to purchase more than we need, right, for the whole week, for example, and then the middle of the week, we are, like our food is not more, it doesn't, sometimes it could be like more perishable crops or food that we need to, that it ends up in garbage or we're wasted. So definitely we have to have an awareness, since we're talking about the awareness campaign, we have to have an awareness campaign about how to consume, even not only produce in a more responsible and sustainable way our food system. Climate actions, life beyond water and life on land as well. So all these food wastage can help achieving those SDGs. So you can tell that by achieving food security for all and sustainable food system, we definitely can achieve several SDGs at the same time. Interlinking impact of migration, agriculture, and climate. That's another main challenge in today's global food security. A large proportion of migrants are from rural areas, right? And depend mostly on agricultural sector and natural resources for their livelihoods. Climate change can exacerbate the degradation of agricultural assets, decrease production, and drastically reduce livelihood opportunities in rural areas. Migration that is not adequately foreseen and facilitated in climate sensitive and vulnerable situations can jeopardize food security in both places of origin and destination. I was mentioning that of one of my students. She's working in Ghana about, I'm not going to say invasion. Now it's just migration of people from outside northern Ghana, like from outside Ghana to the northern Ghana cities there, and how how this can affect food security and nutrition status of local households in both places of origin and the new destination that those people came to set up. Definitely, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to show that SDGs relates also to migrant workers. And as migration has pros and cons. Now, I'm not saying that always migration is negative, but it has some negativity there. For example, like in terms of migration can help family to improve their well-being through increased income, consumption, and resilience, right? But at the same time, migrant can be vulnerable to health risks at the same time. So we have to have a very organized migration. That's what I'm trying to say. As long as I know at the Institute of Global Food Security, we are building or trying to develop what we call a skill council in food security and agriculture. That means building farmers, equipping them with special skill sets. So giving incentives to those young people and young farmers to stay in their villages and households and to work in agriculture. And so stop migrating, stop migration, because of this, because migration, as I mentioned, it's a double-edged sword. It has some potentials, but it has some cons at the same time. Gender inequality, that's another big issue actually to address global food security. Women produce between 60 to 80% of the food in most developing countries, and they are responsible for half of the world's food production. Yet they face gender inequalities. It's mainly in terms of, as I said, decision-making inside the household, and sometimes even, and majority of time actually, about the land ownership. Women's limited access to resources and their insufficient purchasing power are products of a series of interrelated social, economic, and cultural factors that force them into a subordinate role, right, to the detriment of their own development and that of society as a whole. So add to all these the daunting task that women has to do in the field, in the bush, how to prepare the land, how to seed the land, how to remove the weeds, and how to produce the food there. And she has to come back home, prepare the food for the entire family. Where she has, if she's breastfeeding, again, that's a double issue for her. And she has to raise the kids, and so on and so on. So there is a huge gender inequality that has to be addressed in order to achieve a sustainable food system today. In a nutshell, SDG number 5, which talks about gender equality, which is central to several SDGs, as you can tell from this graphic. And if it's not achieved, the implementation of all the goals will be compromised. So you can say, and you can see from this slide, that SDG number 5, which is gender equality, is also interrelated or interlinked to SDG number 11, 7, 6, 12, 15, and 17. For example, in SDG number 11, talks about women have equal rights to the city, and their safety in public spaces is crucial for sustainable urbanization, right? Like SDG number 17, mobilizing sufficient resources will be critical for meeting the gender equality commitments for the 2030 agenda. So women and girls play a central role in the provision, management, and safeguarding of household water and sanitation, for example. So you can tell that gender equality is a core subject or activity or task that we have to fulfill when we need to address a sustainable food system in order to achieve the 17 SDGs by 2030, which sometimes I highly doubt if we can achieve them by within the next 8 years, especially after COVID. All these happening before COVID. Now with the pandemic that hits us and the recent news about the conflict zone and the war between Russia and Ukraine. So it's going to be more difficult to achieve those SDGs by 2030. But we're going to always go, that's why I always call, like to say that we're working towards achieving SDGs and SFS, Sustainable Food Systems. Definitely food security, and one of the major global food challenges in global food security are global health issues. And you saw a great example, unfortunately, of this pandemic, how the pandemic, which is a global health crisis, exacerbate more our food system, our food, so increase the number in terms of food insecure people, right? And malnourished people. So people, they go to bed, there are more people that going to bed hungry every single night. So global health is an area for study, research, and practice that places a priority on improving health and achieving health equity for all people worldwide. NCDs are global health issues that tend to be of long duration and are the result of a combination of genetic, physiological, environmental, and behavioral factors. Due to overnutrition and undernutrition, this is what we call sometimes the double burden of malnutrition. Double burden of food insecurity. This is malnutrition. So some people, they lack food, they are healthy food, they are undernourished, right? And other people, they are overnourished because they're not eating or consuming the good or the nutritious food. They are obese and overweight. So this is what we call the double burden. Population around the world are increasingly exposed to food and diets that influence the risk of developing those NCDs. So the rise of obesity is associated with industrialized and globalized food system producing high-yielding staple food crops. So from this graph, you can see again, I'm always, as I said, going back and forth, try to link those main challenges to the SDGs. So you can tell from this slide that global health and well-being, which is SDG number 3, it's related or interrelated to all the 17 SDGs at the same time. So by addressing one, you help influencing positively or addressing other SDGs. All right. Now I'm moving to the second part of second course of this SFS Sustainable Food System program that we we developed last year within the collaboration with the McGill School of Continuing Studies. The second course is Fundamentals of Sustainable Food System. A sustainable food system is a food system that delivers food security and nutrition for all in such a way that the three pillars of sustainability, economic, social, and environmental bases are there to generate food security and nutrition for future generations. They are not compromised, right? So as if we're saying we need to feed extra billion people coming to Earth without further compromising the environment and ensuring enough natural resources to produce enough food for many generations or decades to come, right? This is a little bit complicated diagram, but it's a bottom-up approach or framework, starting with the food is a right to food, it's a human right, where you can see that it has all the different pillars of food security, availability, accessibility, utilization, stability, and so on. But you cannot do this without a good policy and good governance in place. So that's why in this short video, you saw that no one should be left behind. So we have to come all together, like different sectors, NGOs, private sectors, academicians, civil society, government. They should come all together to face or to address those kind of challenges in food security. Because it's so complex, it has so many drivers. Even look at those biophysical and environmental drivers that they are affecting in some way or another our food system. Technology, innovation and infrastructure, economic and market drivers, political and institutional drivers. Look now what's happening, or what happened with COVID, and now what's happening with the war. How this is affecting the international good trading, and all those barriers and limitations to our food transportation. Social, cultural drivers, demographic drivers again. So all these to say that sustainable food system can be achievable, but it's way more complex than reducing it to a poverty issue. Goals to achieve SDGs. Our current food system, it has different three different goals there, or three different components that we need to ensure a food security and nutrition, while taking into consideration a viable environment and climate change mitigation, right? And it should also consider an inclusive development. So sustainable food system will help to end hunger, along with achieving critical progress on all 17 SDGs, only based on those three different goals. They has to go hand in hand. They cannot separate them. A sustainable food system value chain, or sustainable food value chain, the full range of farms and firms and their successive coordinated value-adding activities that produce raw agricultural materials and transform them into particular food products that are sold to final consumers and disposed of after use in a manner that is profitable throughout, has broad-based benefits for society and does not permanently deplete natural resources, which is referred to as a sustainable food value chain. That's by definition back into 2014 by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. So again, this is just for you to go through this. Again, I'm repeating the same thing. Those are the core value chain segments, starting from the production to the distribution. And it has to have the governance component, which is enabling also some national enabling environment, like the national markets and the international markets, right? All these to say that we cannot do this by detaching it from the sustainability pillars, which are the environmental and the social component also, add to the economic one in order to achieve a sustainable food value chain. Again, the same thing. I'm just here, that's a graphic highlighting that each step in this food value chain, it helps to address several SDGs at the same time, right? So again, we're repeating the same thing, but that's a nice a graphic to show you the flow of the food value chain, as the supply value, the supply food chain, and how they are linked to SDGs. Now, nutrition security, it exists when, in addition to having access to a healthy and balanced diet, people have also access to adequate caregiving practices and to a safe and clean environment that allows them to stay healthy and utilize the food that they eat effectively. What I'm trying to say here is that you cannot separate food security from nutritious security. So food and nutrition security are related together, right? And that's by definition, if we go back to the definition of food security, that we have to afford or to provide food that is safe, but at the same time healthy and of preference, right, for the people. So an individual nutrition status is the result of the relationship between nutrient intake, nutrient requirement, and the body ability to digest, absorb, and utilize these nutrients. Food and nutrition insecurity are interconnected, as you can tell from this diagram. So I'm not going to repeat the same thing. So that's what people are food insecure. They can be undernourished or can be overnourished. So that's to say that food and nutrition security are interrelated. Again, here, that's a diagram shows you how nutrition is influencing directly or indirectly SDGs. What are now the IGFS or the Institute future programs that we're currently developing? I know that the course on fundamentals of sustainable food system that I just explained a bit here, it's still ongoing, still under processing, okay? So we need to add some education lectures on topic like indigenous food system sovereignty for a sustainable future. We need to add also lectures on conflicts and how this is affecting our sustainable food system. What about food emergencies and sustainable food system? This is a hot topic these days, I guess. Integrated rural approaches for an SFS and other case studies. And also we are working with, again, in collaboration with other academic units at McGill to develop what we call a new program, a nutrition sensitive agriculture. And this program is designed to provide students with multidisciplinary educational insights on nutrition sensitive agriculture, which is a food-based approach to agricultural development that emphasizes nutritionally rich food, dietary diversity, and food fortification to overcome malnutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. This will guide students towards having a better understanding regarding how to assess, understand, and positively link food and nutrition. So we're not producing food to increase yield. We have to change our paradigm. We have to produce food because we need to feed people nutritionally. See, we have to link nutrition to agriculture production, and that's the main objective of that nutrition sensitive agriculture course. To conclude, we have some priority outcomes of education for sustainable development goals, and are fourfolds, like the first one, transforming learning environments, building capacities of educators, empowering and mobilizing youth, and accelerating local level actions. I want to thank my two colleagues, Karen and Drashti, and those are their contacts for any future inquiries. And now, before I'm going to stop there, I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Drashti to talk a little bit about her experience at this institute. Drashti, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cortbaoui, for giving me this opportunity. So first of all, hello everyone. I'm very happy to see all of you joining us today for the session on connecting the dots towards sustainable food systems. Our today's presentation focused on spreading awareness regarding achieving SDGs in relation to food security from a sustainable food system viewpoint. Focus was on educational platform to train great young minds like you to mobilize, inspire, and get engaged in actions towards SDG and mitigate challenges from the grassroots levels. And as McGill University gave me an opportunity to be a part of this journey, where I can call myself a food security advocate, I would love to share my experience with you and encourage you to get involved in youth-led organizations. During my project work in Masters, I did my research on food wastage, and from there, my interest towards sustainable food system grew. Looking at the current dire situation of broken food system where over 800 million people live in hunger and despite of enough food available for the entire population, makes me want to work harder and understand the issue of food system drivers from the core. And therefore, with my interest towards working for food loss and waste issues with a focus towards agriculture, hunger and malnutrition to change life of most vulnerable people and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, I landed a research position at Institute of Global Food Security in McGill University, where I have been responsible to design and assist on food security initiatives. I believe in initiatives for youth capacity building through knowledge transfer platforms because according to me, youth are the torchbearers for SDGs and they have the strength to achieve social change, economic growth, and technological innovations. The take-home message that I would like to pass on today is that the future of food is in the hands of young people like us, and hence it is our responsibility to actively get engaged in ongoing actions as a protagonist to build a sustainable food system. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Drashti, for that. We only have a few minutes left, but I wonder if there are any questions from the audience. If there's anything, you can just put your question in the chat. That would be great. I'll give people a few seconds to type if they want to. I do have a question myself if we have nothing from the audience, but I'll wait and see if anyone puts anything in. Well, perhaps while we're waiting, I just wondered if either of you could speak to you were talking about this the short program that's been developed through the School of Continuing Studies. I just wonder if you can speak a little bit about the motivation for that, like why did you pursue doing a short program, and who is it targeting? What kinds of students are you targeting? So if you could answer that, that would be great.
Drashti, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the main reason to organize this short program is to educate people, and we are not just focusing towards students. It is for everyone, like be it students, professors, advocates, because we want them to get educated and get well aware about the sustainable food system as a whole, because currently we see that people have this mentality that food security and it's just related to food. So we want to break that barrier and we want to make people understand that it's not just about the food. Everything, as we saw in the sustainable food system program, that the social, economic, and the environmental aspect, everyone is interconnected. So it's not just we have to make sure that people receive food, and they have food in their plate, but along with that, it is a long journey and we need to educate and teach them to advocate themselves that how important this situation is. And it starts at an individual level. So if an individual participates in this, then definitely we will be moving towards the goal of achieving all our SDGs by 2030. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, for sure. And I put the link up to the short program where if people want to learn more about it, they can go and click on that link. We have a comment saying no questions, but thank you to the presenters for sharing their knowledge. Thank you again. I think Professor Cortbaoui, you, as Drashti was saying, your presentation really showed the interconnection between sustainable food systems and the SDGs and how they are all interrelated. Showing that's not just about zero hunger, it's about social and economic priorities as well. I have one question myself, just to go back. I don't know, hopefully this it won't take too long to answer, but I'm really interested in in what you were saying, Professor Cortbaoui, about food insecurity being not just about access to food, but also choice, because I think there are people who can have access to food through different programs, through different aid programs and things like that. But if they don't have choice, then are they still considered food secure? I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Definitely, if we're going to go back by definition of the food security, so if they don't have a choice, then definitely they are still food insecure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see someone who doesn't have a choice that he's still food secure there. So they should have different choices, and not only because they want to have, or we're going to give them for the privilege to choose, is that our bodies, they need those micro elements, those diverse kind of food, right, to survive. So you cannot go and tell them, well, you have to eat maize every single day for the next, I don't know how many months. So you definitely need to give them the choice and the diversity of food. For example, now I'm working on I'm working on a presentation to present it on March 9 for the HEC Montreal. They're launching a new seed library there. And they invited me as a panelist to launch this seed library. And the main objective or the main topic there is this biodiversity and diversity loss. So people, when they don't have a choice to choose between different diversity or food diversity, then this is not a good, they still want to be considered food insecure. So again, now the causes of, or there could be several causes that preventing those people from having food diverse, or several choices, right? And that could be all because of, as we mentioned before, about those causes. Could be, climate change, could be colonization, could be all those national policies, all those, as I said, mega farming coming to impose their quality standards from outside. And so therefore, that's why we need to put appropriate, relevant policies in place to help those people to have the food of their choice. Yeah, I was working, just to nutshell and to conclude, I was working on a project in the Caribbean in Colombia, Nariño, and we were trying to, telling those people or how to use, or if they want to use a potato, that we developed a new cultivars of potato tubers there. So the people, they were so much rejection from the beginning about those potatoes. I'm not saying that they didn't use it at the end, because there was first thing they were saying, no, we want to still using our, indigenous, native kind of, varieties, right, of food. So before we introduce something new, and from here comes the preference of those people to choose whatever they believe and whatever they want. And same thing happening in our beautiful Canada as well, the northern Canada. So Drashti and I were both working with the Quebec Ministry to work on the Plan Nord project in northern Quebec and Nunavut and Yukon with indigenous people to give them the choice to choose their own food. Yeah, thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Like you say, there's a psychosocial component to food security that doesn't get addressed merely by zero hunger, right? As you were saying. Great. Thank you so much, Professor Cortbaoui and Drashti. It was wonderful hearing your talk. And as I said, we'll post this on the UGC website. And if you're going to post it potentially on the IGFS website, that would be great too, just so as many people as possible can hear your expertise. Thank you so much again. And thank you to everyone who came, and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen.
Take care.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
So.